They were not supposed to be there, and no one has ever been able to explain why they were. At an altitude of over 5,000 meters in the Indian Himalayas, there is a lake so remote that most maps do not name it. The local name is Rupkund. It sits in a glacial basin, frozen for most of the year, invisible to the world below. In 1942, a British forest ranger named H.K. Madwall reported something unusual along the lake's edge: hundreds of human remains lying in the open. British authorities, fearing a mass casualty event from the ongoing war, sent investigators. What they found was not recent, not remotely recent. The bones were ancient, preserved by ice and altitude. Hundreds of individuals clustered together, with no clear explanation for how they died. For decades, Rupkund was a curiosity, studied occasionally, never solved. Then, in 2019, a landmark tuna study changed everything. Researchers from institutions across 3 continents analyzed the remains. The results were published in the journal Nature Communications. The findings were deeply strange. The dead did not all belong to the same group. They did not all die at the same time. Some were separated from the others by more than 1,000 years. From the journal, the lake does not look like a place where things end. It looks like a place where things arrive. The first group died sometime around the 9th century. The second group arrived centuries later, from a completely different part of the world. Genetic analysis revealed that one group carried ancestry traced to the Indian subcontinent. The other carried markers consistent with populations from the Eastern Mediterranean. At over 5,000 meters, in a landlocked Himalayan basin. The distance between those 2 points is not incidental. It is the entire question. From the journal, I have been measuring the distance from the nearest trade route. By any reasonable path, this lake is not on the way to anywhere. No known pilgrimage route, no established trade path, no military corridor passes through Rupkund. Its location is, by every practical measure, a dead end. And yet, people came from distant lands, across centuries, to the same unremarkable basin at the edge of the breathable world. From the journal, the objects here are wrong for this place. A ring I found this morning, the metalwork is not local. I cannot say where it is from, only that it does not belong here. Among the artifacts recovered over the decades, iron spearheads, leather slippers, wooden artifacts, and bangles of a style inconsistent with Himalayan craft traditions. The skeletal remains themselves showed no signs of battle, no weapon injuries, no evidence of disease. Whatever happened here left no mark on the bones. From the journal, if they did not fight, and they did not sicken, then something else brought them all to the same end, something the bones refused to say. One theory, long circulated among researchers, suggests a sudden catastrophic hailstorm. The Himalayas are capable of producing hailstones large enough to fracture bone. But the storm theory requires every individual to have been caught entirely in the open, with no shelter sought, no instinct to flee. It requires a stillness that does not feel human. From the journal, I keep returning to the distribution of the remains. They are not scattered as if running. They are arranged almost as if waiting. The skeletal clusters were not random. Remains were found in distinct groupings along the lake's northwestern shore, as if people had gathered there deliberately. What draws a person to a specific point on a remote lakeshore, at altitude, in cold, that makes every breath deliberate? The answer, if there is one, is not in the bones. From the journal, there is a local song, very old, they say, about a goddess who punished travelers who came to her mountain carrying pride. I asked how old the song was. No one could say. The folk song, known as the Rupkund Ballad, describes a king and queen traveling with a vast retinue, struck down by the goddess Nanda Devi for their arrogance on her sacred slopes. The song predates any known written record of the lake. Its origin cannot be dated, and its description of a mass death in a high glacial basin is precise enough to be unsettling. From the journal, oral memory is not evidence. I know this. But oral memory that matches the physical record this closely is something I do not have a clean word for. What the NA study confirmed was this. The Mediterranean group arrived centuries after the first. They were not part of the same journey. They were not part of the same era. And yet they ended up in the same basin, the same narrow shore, as if the lake had called to them across centuries. From the journal, I have begun to wonder whether the question is not why they died here, but why they came here. Those are not the same question. The Mediterranean individuals were not a scattered few. Genetic analysis identified at least 17 distinct individuals with Eastern Mediterranean ancestry among the recovered remains. 17 people, from a region thousands of kilometers away, who traveled, by any conceivable route, through some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. From the journal, I traced a possible route last night by lamplight. Every path I drew required a choice no rational traveler would make, and yet someone made it. The radiocarbon dates for the Mediterranean group cluster around the 17th to 20th centuries. See, this places their arrival well within the era of recorded history, and yet no record mentions them. No colonial dispatch, no merchant ledger, no missionary account. For a group of 17 people to vanish into the Himalayas and leave no paper trail is, historically speaking, almost impossible. From the journal, I went through the regional administrative records today. The gap is not suspicious in the way a missing page is suspicious. It is simply absent, as if this journey was never meant to be written down. Some researchers have proposed the Mediterranean individuals were pilgrims drawn by a religious tradition, now lost to time. Others suggest they may have been traders following a route no cartographer ever mapped. From the journal, pilgrim or trader, the distinction matters less than I once thought. Both are people who leave home for something they cannot yet name. Both end up somewhere unexpected. There is one detail the 2019 study noted quietly, almost in passing. The Mediterranean individuals were not all the same age when they died. Among them were the young and the middle-aged, the elderly, as if an entire traveling party had made the journey together, intact. From the journal, a group that includes the old and the very young is not a raiding party. It is not a scouting expedition. It is something closer to a community in motion. A community in motion, moving through the highest mountains on Earth toward a lake with no name on any map they could have carried. The artifacts recovered near the Mediterranean remains were no less confounding. Some personal items showed craftsmanship consistent with Mediterranean or Near Eastern traditions. From the journal, a small pendant today. The motif is not one I recognize from any Himalayan tradition. I have been staring at it for an hour. It feels like a word in a language I almost know. Objects carry intention. They are chosen before a journey, packed deliberately. Whatever these people brought with them, they expected to need it. From the journal, what I cannot reconcile is the completeness of their presence here. They brought enough to suggest arrival, not passage. They were not passing through, they came to stay. Came to stay, at a frozen lake above the tree line, where no settlement has ever been recorded, where survival beyond a few days would require provisions no recovered cache has ever confirmed. From the journal, I have stopped asking what killed them. I am asking instead what convinced them, against all reason, that this was the place they were meant to be. The lake itself offers no answers. Rupkund sits at 529 meters, frozen for most of the year, its surface a pale mirror that reflects only sky. From the journal, the lake does not feel abandoned. That is the wrong word. It feels held, as if something here is still waiting for the accounting to be finished. In 2019, the full genomic study was published in the journal Nature Communications. It was the most comprehensive analysis of the Rupkund remains ever conducted. From the journal, the paper is careful, precise, admirably restrained. And yet between every measured sentence, I can feel the authors not saying what they are thinking. What the study could not explain was the temporal separation. The two groups did not die together. They died centuries apart, yet ended in the same place. From the journal, I laid the two timelines side by side tonight. It is a repetition, and repetition implies a reason. Repetition at a remote, inaccessible lake. The same destination chosen independently, across centuries, by people who could not have known of each other. From the journal, unless they did know, not through documents or maps, but through something older, something passed mouth to mouth, generation to generation, that said, "Go there." Oral traditions across multiple cultures describe sacred high places, summits, lakes, glaciers, as sites of transformation, places where the ordinary world thins. From the journal, I do not believe in thin places, but I have been here 11 days now, and I find myself choosing my words more carefully than I did when I arrived. The 2019 study identified something else the headlines did not carry. The two groups showed no signs of interaction, no shared burial rites, no commingled artifacts. They arrived at the same place, across centuries, and left no evidence they knew the other had ever been there. The lake held both, silently, without distinction. From the journal, two groups, centuries apart, the same shore. I keep writing that sequence down, as if repetition will make it yield something. It does not. The local Himalayan group, dated to roughly the 9th century, showed genetic affinity with populations still living in the region today. They were, in every measurable sense, people of this place. From the journal, the local dead feel like they belong here, even now. The Mediterranean dead feel like arrivals. That distinction should not matter after 1,000 years. And yet it does. No genetic mixing was detected between the two groups. Whatever brought them to the same basin, it was not kinship, trade, or intermarriage. Their lives had never intersected. From the journal, I spoke today with a villager whose family has guided pilgrims toward Nanda Devi for 4 generations. I asked if anyone ever came from very far away. He said, always. Always the ones from far away. The pilgrimage route to Nanda Devi is one of the oldest in the subcontinent. Rupkund lies directly along it, a waypoint that demands passage through its basin. From the journal, a waypoint. That is the word the guides use. But a waypoint implies continuation, somewhere beyond. For these people, there was no beyond. The journey ended here. What the route cannot explain is why the Mediterranean group followed it at all. The Nanda Devi pilgrimage is a tradition rooted in the Indian subcontinent. It was not theirs to make. And yet they made it. 17 people from the eastern Mediterranean, walking a sacred path that belonged to another civilization entirely. From the journal, there is a word in several Himalayan dialects for a pilgrim who arrives without lineage in the tradition, not an outsider, something closer to, a seeker who was expected. The distinction matters. A pilgrim who belongs to a tradition follows its rules. A pilgrim who arrives from outside it is following something else, something internal, unnamed. From the journal, I asked the oldest guide what draws people who have no reason to come. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The lake sends no invitations. It does not need to." The skeletal remains of the Mediterranean group were found concentrated along the northeastern shoreline. Not scattered, concentrated, as though they had stopped there with purpose. From the journal, the northeastern shore faces the mountain directly. Whatever they were looking toward in their final hours, they were looking at the same thing. Nanda Devi, the blessed goddess. In the tradition of the subcontinent, she is a protector, but also a force that cannot be approached carelessly. From the journal, I have been reading accounts of Nanda Devi from outside the Hindu tradition, travelers, explorers, people with no stake in the mythology. They all use the same word: presence. The cause of death for the Mediterranean group has never been conclusively determined. The bones show no signs of violence, no trauma consistent with a fall or attack. From the journal, 17 people, no wounds, no weapons turned against themselves or each other. They simply stopped. At the edge of a frozen lake, facing the mountain, they stopped. The elevation at Rupkund makes unconscious death plausible: hypoxia, exposure, exhaustion. But those explanations require conditions the group would have recognized long before they reached the shore. From the journal, if they were dying on the approach, they would have turned back. People turn back. These people did not turn back. That is not exhaustion, that is intention. The 2019 study noted that several Mediterranean individuals showed isotopic markers consistent with a long journey undertaken in the final months of their lives. They had been moving for some time before they arrived. From the journal, they did not arrive by accident. The isotopes confirm what the artifacts suggested. This was a sustained, deliberate journey. Months of walking toward a specific destination. No written record in any Mediterranean archive has ever been found describing a pilgrimage to the Himalayas. Whatever knowledge guided them left no document. It left only the journey itself. From the journal, the absence of documentation is not absence of knowledge. Some things are carried in the body rather than the text. The body remembers what the archive never held. Researchers have proposed that the Mediterranean group may have been connected to trade networks that carried not only goods but stories, fragments of sacred geography passed between merchants across continents. From the journal, trade routes are also rumor routes. A merchant who has seen something passes it forward. The story travels faster than any caravan. By the time it reaches the Mediterranean, it has become a direction without a map, a destination without a name they could have written down. And yet 17 people followed it to the precise coordinates of a lake that had already claimed lives centuries before. From the journal, I leave tomorrow. I have packed everything carefully, and I find as I close my bag that I am already thinking about what would make someone come back. The journal ends there. No final entry, no record of departure, only that last line, and then blank pages for the remainder of the notebook. The author of the journal has never been formally identified. The notebook was submitted anonymously to a research archive in Dehradun sometime in the early 2020s. From the journal, what would make someone come back? I wrote that and then sat with it for a long time. Persatime, I think the honest answer is the feeling that the accounting is not finished for me either. The Rupkund remains are now partially housed in a small local museum and partially retained by research institutions. A portion of the skeletal material remains unaccounted for in the official record. From the journal, there is a fragment I was shown that does not appear in any published inventory, a small piece of cranium. The researcher who showed it to me would not say where it was catalogued. She just held it and said, "This one is different." Subsequent genomic work has continued quietly. At least 2 follow-up studies have been initiated since 2019, neither yet published. The lake, it seems, continues to generate questions faster than answers. From the journal, science is not failing here. Science is doing exactly what it is supposed to do, mapping the edges of the known. The uncomfortable part is how large the unmapped region remains. Rupkund thaws briefly each summer, and each year the meltwater shifts what remains. Bones surface, bones submerge. The lake is still releasing its record, slowly, on its own terms. From the journal, the lake does not owe us resolution. That is the thing I keep forgetting and keep having to relearn. It was here before the question. It will be here long after we stop asking. Two groups, separated by centuries, drawn to the same frozen shore by reasons that no document has preserved and no genome can name. The lake holds them still, and it is not finished. Some places do not ask to be understood. They only ask to be reached, and Rupkund, silent beneath its ice, is still waiting.